It started with a simple mistake. At least, that's what I told myself. I came home from work late, exhausted, my mind foggy from the long day. I dropped my keys on the table, kicked off my shoes, and went straight to the fridge for a drink. That's when I noticed something strange. The chair at my dining table was pulled out, just slightly, barely noticeable. I paused, staring at it. Had I left it like that? I couldn't remember. Shaking off the unease, I pushed the chair back in and went to bed. It was nothing, just my tired brain playing tricks on me. But the next night, the chair was pulled out again. This time, I was sure I hadn't touched it. A chill ran down my spine. Maybe I had just forgotten. Maybe I had bumped into it without realizing it. That had to be it, but the doubt lingered. The third night, I set a test. I pushed the chair in, perfectly flush with the table, and took a picture on my phone before going to bed. When I woke up the next morning, the chair was pulled out. Not slightly fully. I checked my phone. The picture showed the chair where I had left it, pushed in. But now, in front of me, it was out. Someone had been in my house. I searched every room, every closet, every corner. Nothing was out of place. My front door was locked. My windows were shut. There was no sign of a break-in. I wanted to call the police, but what would I even say? Help, my chair moved on its own. I tried to push it out of my mind. Maybe I was sleepwalking. Maybe I was the one moving it and just didn't remember. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the fridge felt amplified, like something was waiting in the dark, watching. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the fridge felt amplified, like something was waiting in the dark, watching. The next day, I bought a small security camera. It wasn't high-tech, just something cheap I found online, but it would do the job. I set it up in my living room, aimed directly at the dining table. If that chair moved again, I'd have proof. That night, I went through the same routine. I pushed the chair in, took a picture on my phone, and made sure all the doors and windows were locked. Then I went to bed, my body tense, every nerve on edge. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I had barely slept at all. My first thought was the chair. My stomach knotted as I walked into the living room. It was pulled out. My heart pounded. I grabbed my phone and opened the security app, my fingers shaking as I scrolled through the footage. For hours, nothing happened. The room was still, empty. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., the chair moved. Not slowly, not like it had been nudged or pulled by an unseen force. It jerked out, as if someone had yanked it violently, but there was no one there. I stared at the screen, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. My apartment was locked. No windows were open. I had been in my room the entire night, so how the hell did the chair move? A cold sweat broke out on my skin. I rewound the footage, watching it again and again, hoping I had missed something, a shadow, a flicker of movement, anything. And then I saw it. A single frame, just before the chair moved. A figure, not fully formed, not solid. A shape tall, thin, standing in the corner of the room. Almost blending into the darkness. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. I rewound again, paused the frame, and stared. It was inside my apartment. I dropped my phone. My pulse was hammering in my ears. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I hadn't just been imagining things. Someone or something had been in my home this entire time, and they wanted me to know it. I wanted to run, to grab my keys and never step foot in this apartment again. But my body wouldn't move. I stood frozen, staring at the image on my phone, the dark figure in the corner, barely visible but undeniably there. And then, my phone screen flickered. For a split second, the image glitched, distorting the figure's shape. And then it was gone. The frame was empty again, as if it had never been there. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My mind was racing with explanations. A camera malfunction. A trick of the light, but I knew better. I had felt something watching me for days. I forced myself to move, grabbing my bag and heading straight for the door. I wasn't staying another night. I needed to go now. But just as my hand touched the doorknob, a sound stopped me cold. A chair scraping against the floor. I turned slowly, dread twisting in my stomach. The dining chair, the one I had just pushed in, was pulled out again. The room was empty. No footsteps. No creaking floors. Just me. And yet, I wasn't alone. My breathing turned shallow as I took a step back, then another. And then, in the suffocating silence, I heard it. A whisper. Not words. Not a voice I could recognize. Just a breath. A sigh inches from my ear. I ran. I didn't care if I looked crazy. I sprinted out of my apartment, down the stairs, and into the street. The cold night air hit my skin like a slap, but I kept going, not stopping until I reached my car. I moved out the next day, breaking my lease and leaving everything behind. I didn't care about the money. I just needed to be gone. But even now, in my new place, I can't shake the feeling that I made a mistake. That leaving wasn't enough. Because sometimes, in the dead of night, I still hear it. That same soft whisper. Right behind me.